Good evening. My name is Ben Foltran, and this is the Groundview. This week we are kicking off the presidential interviews with the Roub Timmons campaign. And an awesome time talking with both Brennan Roub and Blaise Timmons, and I hope you enjoy the conversation just as much as I did on this segment of the Groundview.
Well, good evening, gentlemen. I would like to welcome you here to the Ground View. It's an honor to have you. Could both of you please just introduce yourselves, starting with Brennan?
Yeah. Hey guys, my name is Brennan Roub, and I am from Florida. I don't know if you wanted me to say that or not.
Yeah, Blaise?
My name is Blaise Timmons. I am from Kansas. I was told by Ben not to move on cameras. I seem really stiff. It's because my internet's really bad and I was given clear instructions. So I'm from Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, but I grew up in Ashland, Oregon. So I'm really really from the West Coast, but I'm here in the Midwest for a little while, and I absolutely love it. It's 9 day difference, but people are definitely more friendly um, on the West Coast.
Absolutely. Now, could please both of you just please kind of explain your portion of Teen Pact and your experience with Teen Pact as it pertains to your time with the organization, starting with Blaise.
Yeah, so I started back in 2017. And it really wasn't me starting, it was my mom starting me. Kind of how most people get involved in Teen Pact. I was 13 years old and I was like, oh man, this government camp sounds awesome. I'm kind of a nerd for the political side of Teen Pact. And I admit that. But yeah, I heard about it and I really was happy to go, but very nervous for the people interaction. I was not super good with people interaction. So that's kind of how my life started in Teen Pact, and I enjoyed it. The staff team really helped me get out of my bubble, and really helped me just learn to interact with people a lot better. Um, and so then I went back the second year. Second year, I absolutely loved it. It was a great experience. I was 14, met Jesus in a crazy way at a camp, um, at Teen Pact camp. And it was just a big year for me. 14 was a big year for me. And just taking my faith, there were a couple other church camps I went to, but taking my faith to a whole other level. So super thankful for that. I did not go in 2019, 2020. I did not go. I went again as a student in 2021, because I felt like I wanted a little more experience before I staff. Um, and I loved it. That was actually the first year I had not won any offices the years before. That was the first year I won an office, which I don't know. I feel proud of still. Um, and, and staff last year, and now I'm travel staffing this year. And it's just been an absolute blessing to grow in getting to know the different types of people, getting to see different parts of the country, but also having my beliefs and opinions really changed. It's been a key motivator to change as a person, and it's been a key part of who I am today, I would say.
Yeah, for me, I also started in 2017, back when I was 13. I went the first year because my sister was a staffer. Her and I were and still are very close. We were both kind of similar to Blaise, huge nerds for the political process back then. And it was just this thing that she did and she loved. And I feel like a lot of people's story with Team Pact is like, I went for a government camp, but I didn't understand the relationship aspect of it. But I had a little bit of a different experience with, just because the nature of my sister staffing and talking about it to the extent that she did. I was expecting that going into it, and my expectations were 100% met. It was a great week, one of my favorites ever. I attended NatCon and Venture that year. 2018 and 19, I went back as a student, did the same thing, state class NatCon Venture each year. And then 2020, COVID hit. I didn't go to my state class that year. They did actually have a Florida state class. I just didn't go. And then I applied to staff. I was accepted. I staffed in Florida the 2021 season. 2022, I was asked back to travel. And I did that. I was elected a representative of the Teen Pack student body in 2022. Interestingly, the first time I ever made it out of primaries for a Teen Pact election was when I ran for rep in 2021. I wasn't elected that year. And the first Teen Pact election I ever won was at the NatCon level. I had never made it out of primaries for senator or governor in a state class. I'd never been elected chair or clerk or anything like that. So it was really unique to have that being my first experience of winning an election. But I'm back this year. I have had a great season so far. I'm actually currently packing. I'm leaving for the Utah class tomorrow. So when this comes out, I'll be there. But it's been incredible. I wasn't saved at Teen Pact. I was saved back at home. But I've seen it was kind of in the middle of my time in Teen Pact. So I've seen like the way I've kind of viewed and gone into Teen Pact before, and then the way I've gone into it after. And it's just been so much sweeter walking with the Lord and just really staying beside him and allowing myself to give everything to him. It's just been really just a great experience, I guess, stepping back and letting him use me this season. So I've loved it. It's been great.
Fantastic. Both those stories are fantastic to hear. Now, of course, you are running as a combined ticket, the Roub Timmons presidential ticket. Would you mind just kind of explaining not only what made you decide to run, but how you met and decided to collab with this?
So how Blaise and I met last year at National Convention, myself and Blaise and our campaign manager, Talia Cole, the three of us were the campaign managers that we were the campaign managers of the tickets that made it out of primaries last season. So the first time, I think Blaise and I had probably talked before, but the first time I really remember a full-blown like conversation interaction with Blaise was it was like a tech rehearsal type of thing. We just had to go to session early, sit in our chairs, do whatever, just to make sure that everything was right. And we got in probably about 15 minutes, or we were there on time, but stuff ran late. So it was just the three of us kind of in the lobby of the con center at NatCon before they let us in to do our thing. So the three of us were just talking. We got to know each other. We kind of agreed, like, why don't we make campaign manager Q&As like really fun and really memorable? Because a lot of the times campaign managers don't do that, but we were just kind of saying that like we might as well do this. And I think there was a joke made that night or at some point later, like, what if like some combination of the three of us ran as a ticket and then the other was a campaign manager? Like none of us thought we'd actually do it, but we just kind of brought it up as like, oh, it was, it would be funny. Blaise, you want to tell them the origin story of the ticket now?
Oh, do I ever? Yeah, it's pretty comical actually. Seeing as like it feels really bad to say like, yeah, it started as a joke last year at NatCon. Say that's how we started. But that's definitely how we met, and it's just led to such a great friendship. And how we actually decided that we were going to run together is so I was at staff training. Obviously, Brennan was at staff training, and we low-key thought about running, but a lot of the people we were going to run with had already been asked or were already running or weren't sure. And we were like, oh, what are we going to do? Desperate measures. Who do I ask? And so I was walking into the bathroom and Brendan was walking out of the bathroom and he's like, bro, what do you think of the possibility of a Timmons Roub Timmons ticket? And he's like, okay, got to go to session, and left me with that right before session. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? And, and so I was like, okay, let me think about it. Let me pray about it. And kind of see if I have a message, where I'd want to take that. And just thought about it, prayed about it, took a week to think on it. Just because it sounded like a good opportunity, a great opportunity, but I didn't want to just like do the wrong thing or anything. So I took a week and then I called up Brennan, and he was actually about to become the campaign manager for a different ticket. And I was like, bro, do not, like, you can't propose this awesome ticket idea and then leave me here. Like, I'm sold on this. And he was like, all right, I'm in 100%. So I would say maybe 2 weeks after staff training, we just had our first phone call and we're like, let's make this a reality. What do we want to run with? Who do we want to have on our team? And it just felt like it made sense, and a lot of the conversations that we had talked about at NatCon that first time meeting, and just what I knew of Brennan before, it kind of just made sense. It was like, yeah, this is gonna be an awesome time. It's gonna be a great time, and feel like it would be most effective for getting out our message and just reaching the TP Nation.
Yeah, it's actually it was really funny because right after that interaction, like I shot Blaise a text and I was like, bro, that was a lot to put on you right before session. I'm really sorry. But yeah, it was really interesting with the timing of Blaise calling and everything, because I'd asked him, I proposed the question, and I didn't just like, it wasn't a throwaway question. It was something I was legitimately asking. But sort of at the same time, I'd sort of like let myself become really terrified to run, and like I didn't really want to do it at that point, back in January. And I just like I wanted to take a path at NatCon that I was more comfortable with. So my plan was I was going to manage a different ticket and I was going to run for Senate. That was my plan. And I remember I look at my phone and I see the notification that Blaise is calling me, and I was like, Lord, if Blaise says yes, this is what you want. And then Blaise said yes, and we've been here. Yeah, it's been incredible though. I'm very happy that the Lord has put this in our path. It's just been an incredible time already.
That sounds like quite the wild ride and quite the entertaining story, I must say as well. As must have been.
It's an emotional roller coaster, that's for sure.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you mentioned how when you brought that up, would it be a Roub Timmons campaign or Timmons Roub campaign? What made you decide to run as Roub Timmons?
Can I answer this one, Brennan?
Yeah, you got it. I was gonna defer to you anyways.
um, so I actually I either called him or sent him a text, and I said, hey man, like, I've been thinking about it a lot. What role I wanted to have. And I was like, do I want Prez? Do I want VP? Because it's kind of the unhad conversation that you have to have eventually. You can't say, hey, want to join my campaign team? They're like, who's running for president? And you're like, oh, we don't know. And I just felt like, well, I don't feel like I need to be in that role of the person who's calling all the shots, maybe at the end of the day. And I feel like I had a different place and a different job. Yeah, I love being a supporter. A lot of the times I can be that person who pushes up from the bottom. And he just says, like, I don't know, that's just something that I felt like I was called to do with this. And it's maybe not something that people think about that hard, or that long, but I just called him up. Hey, Brennan, this is what feels right to me. I feel like Roub Timmons feels good. Let me know what you think. He took a couple of days and was like, yeah, I would agree. And I think the Lord has definitely blessed that. And it feels, I don't know, it just seems right. I feel like other ways around, I'd be too stressed, too worried. But we also don't see it as like a top of the ticket or like a bottom of the ticket. I know that's kind of like the lingo that Team Pack uses. Team Packers are super good at saying, "Oh, who's on the head of the ticket?" Because that is true. It does play a big role, but it's not really about that at the end of the day, because you get an equal voice and you get an equal say. It more shows about how well you guys work together, how you are unified in your decision making. I think we saw that very obviously in team packed elections. You look at the primaries and you say, okay, who made out of primaries? It was the most unified team. And we have our campaign manager, Talia Cole. Shout out to her. She's absolutely fantastic. I was gonna say fantabulous. That is not a word, but she is fantabulous. Fantastic and fabulous, and she gets 33% of the credit. And that 1%, because she's putting in just the same amount of work, but she doesn't get, it's not a three-way ticket. And so that's kind of just how we've looked at it, is like, put in the work. We're all going to step up to the challenge and kind of share the burden evenly. Does that answer your question in a concise way?
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, you're kind of both explaining your whole campaign. Would you just mind explaining why you chose, well, for one, what party you chose to run in this year and what made you choose that party. And Brennan, please.
Yeah, so Blaise and I are running in the Compassion Party this year. Um, we chose it because a lot of the time, the Compassion Party is sort of viewed as a throwaway party. It's kind of viewed as like the little brother of Perseverance and Vision. And with that, this sounds bad, but there's not generally a ton of competition within Compassion. We didn't want to be in a situation where we wanted to avoid a situation where we were going to have to completely risk not even making it out of primaries, going against one of the massive tickets. Because kind of the entire goal of Blaise and I's campaign this entire time has been a message that the Lord has put on our hearts and that we want to just share with everybody. And a way that we've done that is just like putting ourselves in Compassion. It can be a big power move to go in a bigger party like Perseverance or Vision and risk it all, but have honestly a bigger reward of knocking a big ticket out. That was what my ticket, the ticket that I was managing last year, that was what we did. But Blaise and I wanted to take the approach of running potentially strategically maybe a weaker party, but having that opportunity to, barring another ticket announcing, basically guarantee ourselves to generals. That was really something that we wanted to do this year. That was something that was important to us.
Compassion often fits that role of just leading the single campaign or generally the only major campaign in the party just straight into generals. And absolutely a strategic move. And I definitely get that. Now, moving on, would you like to both explain your campaign's message, as that is a major part of Teen Pact elections?
Yeah. So our message took us a long time to actually come to. I feel like a lot of people have a message and then they're like, oh, who do I run with? Ours is kind of the reverse of that. We knew we were going to run and we're like, oh, we need a message. And it took us a good 2 weeks before we had a message. And we had a lot of ideas and we threw a lot out. Because we understand that since the message is coming second, it needs to be something we've all been pondering and all been actually wondering. And what it boiled down to was freely give. And it's been insane because through all the moments of this campaign, I feel like I've been hearing like confirmation from the Holy Spirit of that message, just whether it's in a sermon, or I literally landed in Florida to shoot some videos with Brennan, and the guy in the plane right in front of me had the verse Matthew 10:8 on the back of his hoodie. And it was at a time when I was honestly really doubting. I was like, oh my goodness, we poured a lot into this. What if it comes to nothing? So things like that have just been super good. And so I actually have the preface to our message, Ben, if you don't mind. I'm just going to read that for you and give you guys a little sneak peek into what we're launching for. So here's the preface. The message of a campaign is often the only thing people want to hear when you tell them you are running. It is the most important part of a candidate's run. People will either relate to it or find someone else who they relate to more. That is not our goal. That is not what the message Freely Give is about. This message is a reminder that we are not our own. Quote, you were bought with a price. Do not become bondservants of men. 1 Corinthians 7:23. And so what we're trying to get at is that we've freely been given everything by God. Every talent, every blessing under the sun is a gift from God. And how are we going to use that? Brennan, do you want to carry us on with that?
Yeah. So it comes from Matthew 10:8, which crazy thing with that, the day before Blaise came down. So Blaise came down to Florida on a Monday. The day before, my pastor had preached on this verse. So it was just kind of that whirlwind of confirmation that this is what the Lord wants us doing. But yeah, Matthew 10:8 says, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. It's this idea that, like Blaise said, we're called to take everything we have and just give it to the Lord, because it was never ours to begin with. It was really cool in coming up with the message. Blaise and myself and Talia were just kind of talking through what the Lord had been teaching us. And it was sort of three different angles of the concept of just giving everything. Not only in the way of like, Lord, have everything I'm going through, have everything going on with me mentally. Obviously, yes, that's a massive thing that we're called to give, but not only giving things to the Lord, but giving ourselves for the Lord in the way of service, in the way of worship, things like that. We're using our message as a call to action. Go out there, serve, give what you have to the Lord and for the Lord.
Well, that is a fantastic message to hear, and it's always fantastic listening to the different campaigns' messages, and I definitely think that yours is quite a good one. Now, of course, at Teen Pact national elections, a big component of all of these presidential campaigns is that they have to discuss a certain topic of debate at national convention. This year, that being homelessness. Now, have you taken any stance on homelessness as a campaign this year? Brennan, you can start.
Yeah, so full transparency, this is still something that we are in the process of working on figuring out. I'm not going to have a super detailed answer for you at this point. I will say, even before we released, or even before Teen Pact released that, it's something that in things that will be announced later is wrapped up in our campaign. We've kind of had this issue on our hearts the entire time. I will say also, we are definitely looking in the field of like providing jobs, like the Compassion Party stance says, providing jobs, addressing the minimum wage, things like that. But we're still kind of going through the processes of talking with some people, figuring out between ourselves of not only having the Compassion Party stance, but making it our own. So it's not just a copy paste of it. That's the most information I can give on that right now.
Very good. Well, I definitely get that, that is a very nuanced issue and not something to be taken lightly either. Now, as we kind of begin to wrap up here, I would like to ask both of you individually, is there any Teen Pact memory or just point at any event that sticks out that you witnessed or that you experienced that's just a special moment to you? And we can start with Blaise.
Yeah, so a memory from Teen Pact that has stuck with me. There's a lot when I think back to state classes and alumni events, but the one that comes to mind right now, probably because it's coming up the closest, is Alumni Park mid-afternoon at National Convention. I didn't play any sports last year, and I got to know like a lot of really cool people just through hanging out at Alumni Park and playing spike ball and can jam. Just people who really, maybe didn't have anything to do. They were just kind of there with their older siblings, and who kind of just were there along for the ride. Of my favorite things, and how you can get to know it in such a short amount. Impact kind of specializes in that. You get to know someone very well with a short amount of time, and so just being there every day. I'm doing sports this year, but I'm going to try to make it down to Alumni Park, and hopefully continue to build those memories with people. Those are truly some of my favorite. And whenever I think of like Alumni Park, or not Alumni Park, but National Convention, and I try to tell someone to go, that always comes to mind. It's probably one of my favorite memories.
For me, two separate ones come to mind. And they're both from state classes. The first one is from the Missouri 2 class. Last year, I had the opportunity to be on it. I remember, so both of these have to do with like the worship and evening session the last night. So it was the last night, and there was this student who had been super involved all week, really incredible guy, made it out of primaries for governor and things like that. But during free time, he had injured his hip. So he just naturally, in order to not make it worse, he wanted to stay, but he wanted to be in the back of the room. He didn't want to re-aggravate anything. So I went and just sat in the back with him. And that night, it was just the worship leader with a guitar, and everybody was just kind of in a circle. And it was this really beautiful thing where people were just praying for each other. I saw at least 2 people give their lives to the Lord. Just this beautiful, like, intimate moment of worship between everybody. And where normally, I'm in there, I'm rejoicing, I'm praying with people. It's me and this guy, Nico, and we're just taking the whole thing in. We're just watching. And I remember he said, like, we're just sitting there, just like in awe of what the Lord's doing. And he's just like, I feel like sometimes the Lord moves the most in you when you're watching him move in other people. And it was such this cool moment in just this entire night where, like, we're talking, we're like kind of pointing out to each other, like, oh, this guy's praying, this guy, like, it was just so cool, just like watching everything unfold. And like, it was just such a special experience, such a special interaction. We got to talk for a while after, and it was just really an incredible moment. Kind of in that same vein, this year, on the Mississippi 2 class, Quentin Cools was our class director, and on Wednesday night, he led this really impactful evening session, and then was like, I'm going to just open it up. If you either want to rededicate or give your life to the Lord, just stand up and say Jesus is Lord. None of this, like, close your eyes and raise your hand and somebody will come pray for you. We're not going to have music going in the background or anything. Like, it was there, and it was like kind of awkward silence, but it was just this public declaration of, like, Jesus is Lord. And we're all kind of expecting, 2, maybe 3 people. I'm not kidding. 20 people stand up. And it was like 5 of the guys in my rendezvous stood up. And it was just like kind of the opposite of that story on Missouri 2, where I was in the middle and I'm rejoicing with everybody and I'm praying for people. And it was just like, it was so cool watching everybody knew somebody or multiple people that had just given their life to the Lord. And everybody's rejoicing and everybody's together. And rendezvous that night were incredible. We were just I don't know that it was the deepest conversation, but we were all just so happy. We were just like rejoicing together. And it was just, it was really beautiful. And it still in a different way kind of came back to, like, the Spirit moves the most in you when you're watching it move in other people. I think me personally, I'm a type of guy that just really enjoys having fun in a class. But I look at, gosh, my 6 years, I'm so old. I've been in Team Pack 6 years. I look back at all these events I've been to, and like, those are the moments that stick out to me. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen. It was incredible.
That's amazing. Those intimate moments at Teen Pact are very, very powerful. And I can say from experience that it can be the Lord can move in incredible ways at Teen Pact, and it truly is amazing. Now, of course, as we have run out of time, I would like to thank both of you for coming on to the Groundview, giving your testimonies, giving your campaign up for the attention of the Teen Pact body.
Yeah.
And please, I would like to just wish you a good evening.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you so much, Ben.
It's been a pleasure.